然后大家也可以在高顿设立的微信群进行小组讨论这一问题。那在大家讨论的过程中，我也会看一看大家在群里的参与度。那根据大家的疑问，我也会给出一些适当的指导。
All these sessions will be recorded and will be available to you. These live sessions will be recorded and will be available to you. During these live sessions, you need to participate. And participation, so basically you need to attend. That's one point. You will get a grade for your attendance. And you also need to participate. Participation does not mean that in each session everybody needs to talk. It's a huge class and that's not going to be feasible. However, during the whole duration of class, or duration of course, you need to talk at least twice. You need to at least raise your concerns and give feedback at least twice.
那在直播课上，这个直播课会被录像并且上传到平台供大家以后查阅。然后大家在直播课上的参与度和出勤也都会算入分数的。首先大家必须要参与每堂课，大家的出勤会被计入考察分数。那关于参与度上，我肯定不会要求每位同学每节课都要发言，对于这么多人的这堂课来说，这也是不太现实。但我希望在整个课程中，每个同学都能够在这4次课中发言至少2次，然后对大家就是参与一些讨论，或者给出一些你们的反馈和想法。
Okay, and thank you to those of you who have turned your videos on. If you have the possibility to turn your videos on, please do that. And also, again, please type in your English name as well. That's a requirement. If you are in a distracted environment and you cannot turn your videos on, that's totally okay. I understand that. And again, that will be also part of your participation.
Okay. 那我也很感谢现在有愿意把你们的摄像头打开的同学。如果条件允许的话，我希望同学们能把摄像头给打开，来增加我们之间的这样的一个互动感。而且希望也是同学们能够把大家的英文名给打出来，这样我也能够了解各位同学都是谁。当然，如果说由于环境受限，大家现在不太方便打开摄像头的话，我也是十分理解的。
Okay. In our live sessions, in each session, we will spend about 10-15 minutes at the beginning of the session to review that chapter and give you some broad idea of what happened, and ask if you have any questions, I will answer them. And then after that, I will go ahead and solve the questions, analytical, conceptual, and finally the case study. We will discuss that.
那在每节直播课，我首先会花10到15分钟给大家回顾一下之前的内容，可能大概的分享一些比较新的有关于供应链的信息，并且回答一些问题。那接下来就会帮大家一起解决我们的计算题以及概念选择题。那同时，然后也会帮大家一起来分析一下我们的案例研究。
So, are there any questions for me that I can address before we get started?
Okay. 那在我们正式开始前，有没有人现在有什么问题想要问呢？
Okay, so while we are working, those of you who have, I see that some of you have your phone name or tablet name as your screen name. If you can go ahead and change that would be great. And I'll go ahead and start the session.
好的，那接下来我就开始。如果有同学能把名字稍微改一下的话，就改上英文名，那也会是比较好的。
Okay. So today, as you know, we will go over Chapter 6. Chapter 6 introduces you to supply chain design, and topics that we cover here are global supply chain design decisions, and the impact of blockchain technology, outsourcing and offshoring decisions, break-even analysis for outsourcing decision, and also a detailed description of Inditex Zara supply chain. You had that in the video and in the readings. And we also have location decisions and center of gravity method. And finally, we have the transportation model for optimizing supply chain.
那我们今天上课讲的内容是课本第6章的内容。那我们整堂课讲的大概就是有关于供应链设计，其中涵盖的包括供应链设计中的决策、区块链、 离岸和回流，包括外包的决策，以及通过一个盈亏均衡点的分析来决定外包的决策。然后在大家的 reading 材料里也给出了大家的 Inditex 和 Zara 的一个案例。此外，我们还包括选址决策，利用重心法来进行决策，以及通过交通决策来实现一个供应链的最优化的问题。
The last piece of this chapter, which is the transportation model for optimizing supply chain costs, that has been removed from the required questions. So you don't need to submit that. You don't have a question on that front. However, I highly suggest that you go ahead and study that. And today, if time allows, I will review that optimization and transportation model as well. This is a very important topic in supply chain design.
那利用这样的一个运输和交通的模型来实现这个成本的最优化这个问题，我从它的就是 case 的几个问题里把它移掉，大家不需要去做这个问题。但是我希望大家有时间的话，还是能够自己学习，并且来看一下这个问题。那我如果接下来有时间，我也会和大家再仔细讲一下这个问题本身还是比较重要，而且比较实用的。
And there are also two supplements to this chapter, supplement C, which is break-even analysis, and supplement E, which is the transportation model and the optimization of supply chain. These are both are optional. You can go ahead and study those if you are interested.
那这一周也是给大家上传了2个额外的补充材料，一个是利用盈亏均衡点进行分析，还有一个就是利用交通模型或者说是运输模型实现整个成本的最优化。大家如果有时间有兴趣的话，也可以自己去看一下学习一下。
There are also a couple of Excel spreadsheets that are available to you. One is break-even analysis, one is center of gravity, and the last one is transportation model that go hand in hand with all the discussions that we will have.
此外呢，也给大家分享了一些 Excel 的模板表格，其中就包括了盈亏均衡点分析表格、重心法的表格以及运输模型的表格。这些也都是在我们之前的讨论以及录像课中提到了它们的使用，大家也可以详细了解一下。
And finally, we will have the Boston Red Sox spring training decision case study, which requires you to use the center of gravity method along with some quantitative criteria to decide where to locate a stadium.
那我们还会这周的案例分析是有关于波士顿红袜队的一个分析，需要大家利用重心法和一些其他的定量标准来决定到底在哪里确定这个体育馆的位置。
This is a multi-criteria decision-making case in which you integrate the center of gravity with qualitative criteria as well as some quantitative measures.
那这是一个多标准类型的决策的问题，也就是需要大家综合运用一些定量标准和定性标准来一起最终做出这个选址的决定。
I've also prepared 2 videos for this session. We will watch one of the videos now. And the second video, which is more interesting, if time allows, we will watch that at the end of our session. If not, I will provide the link to you so you can go ahead and watch it on your own.
那这堂课上也会和大家一起看2个视频，第一个视频我们马上就会放，那第2个视频我觉得还挺有趣的，如果有时间的话，我们会在课堂最后放，如果时间不够，我也会把链接分享给大家，然后大家能够自己看一下。
Okay, fantastic. So now let's go ahead and get started with this whole idea of supply chain and supply chain disruption. We have a saying in English that let's address the elephant in the room. If there is something huge that everybody's concerned about and nobody's talking about, we say that there is an elephant in the room. The elephant in the room today, and these days for the last 2 years basically, is the supply chain crisis due to COVID-19.
那接下来我们就来开始一些有关于供应链的最新新闻的讲解。这其实是近2年来都非常热门的一个话题。那在最近的2年里，可能大家都在谈论的有关于供应链最大的一个问题，就是新冠疫情导致的供应链危机。
Let's see why this supply chain crisis has happened, and then also let's see if this course that you are taking is going to help us understand this problem a little better and find out why this supply chain crisis is happening all across the world, especially in the United States and China.
那我们接下来就会解释一下为什么这样的一个供应链危机会发生。通过这堂课，我们能更好地理解供应链危机以及它在全球，尤其是美国和中国发生的原因。
Short answer to this question before watching this video is that our supply chains, the global supply chains, are designed in a very, very efficient and responsive way.
那首先在看视频前，我先简短的回答一下，我觉得很重要的一个原因就是我们的全球供应链是以一个非常高效并且回复率很高的、回复率很快这样的一个方式来进行设计的。
By high efficiency, I mean that there is a very, very small room for contingency. There are no inventory being held to make sure that problems, if problems arise, they can be solved.
但是这样的一个高效率也就意味着这种供应链留给一些紧急事件的空间是很小的，所以说如果遇到了一些突发的情况，库存可能是没有办法应对这样的危机。
Concepts like pool production and JIT production you visited in chapter 6 and JIT you will visit it in other chapters. They all make this supply chain very efficient, at the same time very fragile. The supply chain is very lean and very efficient. However, at the same time, it means that the other side of the coin, it means that this supply chain is very susceptible to not being able to function in extraordinary situations or non-common situations, non-normal situations which we are living in.
也就是说，生产还有等等一系列的要素，我们以后的课程也会仔细讲解，会使得我们的供应链变得非常的高效，但同时也是非常的脆弱。也就是说，我们的供应链在这种构造下变得是非常的精益，非常的高效，但是在另一方面，它也非常的脆弱，非常的容易遭受一些外部的伤害。所以说，当遇到一些比较多样化、比较不太正常、比较突发的情况，我们现在的供应链可能就不是能够很好的来应对这些状况。
Okay, now let's go ahead and watch this video. I will turn on the closed captioning in simplified Chinese. Is that correct?
Yeah, simplified Chinese.
Okay, so let me go ahead and take care of that real quick. And every 1 minute, I will stop so the translator can translate it for you.
Yeah. 那接下来放视频，教授会把这个实时字幕打开，每隔1分钟会停一下，留我给大家进行翻译。
Okay, everybody can see the screen?
大家都能看到视频吗？ Yes, everyone can see it.
Okay, fantastic.
Last month, Costco announced it was reinstating limits on how much toilet paper you can buy. Chip shortages are bedeviling companies that make everything from computers to cars to cooktops. And you might want to start considering beginning your holiday shopping today. Otherwise, you might not get what you want. What in the world is going on? This is meant to be a recovery. Well, David Lynch wrote a terrific piece in the Washington Post explaining exactly that. He joins me now. Welcome, David. So I'm in New York. I want to buy something. It's on the website. I get it. Why does it not get to me within the amount of time I'm used to getting it by?
Sure. Well, at the moment, whatever you order is probably sitting in a shipping container that's stuck on one of the several dozen ships, as many as 60 or 70 ships that are anchored off the coast of Southern California, just waiting for a spot at the dock to come in and unload.
OK， 那最近 Costco 超市宣布，他们又恢复了每个顾客对于厕纸的这样的一个购买的限制。也就是说，现在由于多个工厂 其中包括电脑的一些设备，包括炉灶设备的在内的很多工厂都宣布了这样的一个物品的短缺，或者说他们生产力的不足，因此导致了现在很多产品都出现了库存不足，因此需要限制购买量。那这个时候，如果你要考虑进行你的假期的购物的话，我劝你马上就去，要不然的话，你可能就不一定能买到你就需要的东西。那今天我们邀请到了来自华盛顿时报的 David 来跟我们分享一下有关于这方面的一些看法以及交流。那所以我想问一下 David， 我如果是想要买东西，我知道这些东西在网上能买到，可是为什么我下单了以后，这些东西的送达时间比以前要晚了很多呢？那 David 的回答就是，其实现在我们可以看到这幅图，现在在海上可能正有60到70艘的货船，里面全都是载着这些货物的集装箱，他们马上就要抵达加州，但是现在他们其实都是在等着到达了港口，等着到达了甲板上，他们的货物能够被卸下来。
But this has been going on since the start of the pandemic, from the factories in Southeast Asia through the ports on the west coast of this country to the trucking firms, the rail yards, right up to your doorstep. There have been problems one after the other.
And each one feeds the other, right? So explain what happens. So as you say, there are all these ships waiting there. They can't get a spot. But now the trucks that have been waiting for for the ship containing my goods is now off schedule, right?
Exactly. This system, it sounds on the one hand, the supply chain, like the simplest idea. We're really just talking about moving boxes from point A to point B. But in practice, it turns out to be devilishly complex. And the system works quite well under normal circumstances. And it's built to operate a little bit like runners in a relay race. I run my lap, I hand the baton to you, you run a lap, and so on.
那其实在新冠以后，我们整个供应链都出现了很大的问题，从东南亚的工厂的生产力不足，再到我们这个运输到西海岸出现问题，再到后续的一系列运输，包括一直送到我们的最后商场，送到消费者的手中。所以说在整个供应链的环节当中，每个环节都出现了问题，一环接一环，这些问题又互相的影响，因此也就导致了我们现在这样局面。也就是说，这些货船在等着他们的货物能被卸下来，能被装载，能被送到指定的地方，但同时来负责送这些货物的卡车，他们现在的运营力也不太足了，而导致了这样的一个整个的运送的延后。所以说供应链，我们想象中的供应链是非常简单的，也就是把这些东西从一个 A 地点运到 B 地点，但实际情况它其实是要复杂的多。所以说这个系统我们的供应链系统在正常的状况下，它确实可以运行的比较好，但是如果遇上这种特殊的情况，比如有点类似于我们可能个人做实验的情况，有的时候一个人的失误可能会影响到其他人的失误，那这个环节也是一个环环相扣的失误过程。
But if when I finish my lap, you're not there waiting to take the baton, it doesn't matter how fast the next guy is, the system grinds to a halt. And that's what we're seeing with the supply chain. Those ships can't get to the docks. When they do, it's terribly crowded. The trucks that normally get in and out in the blink of an eye take forever. And the same thing happens at the rail yards, and the breakdown feeds on itself.
Is there a kind of original cause to this, what's going on right now? Or is it just so complicated one can't even pinpoint a place where it all started?
Well, the original sin is really the change in consumption patterns that occurred as a result of the pandemic. You go back to last year when many of us were trapped at home for a long time. We all stopped going out and spending money on services at restaurants, ballparks, movie theaters, concerts. And many of us started ordering more stuff on Amazon, Walmart, and elsewhere, laptops, furniture, clothes, what have you. And so if you look at the nature of the economy, services always dominates the U.S. economy, makes up about 70% of spending.
所以这个就打个比方，相当于说，如果我们在街里跑，我跑得很快，把 接力棒递给了下一个人，但是如果他不跑的话，我们还是没有办法到达终点。现在供应链就是差不多这样的一个情况，就是由于我们的货船没有办法及时的到达港口，港口现在非常的拥挤，他们没有办法卸货，所以说后续的包括卡车，包括后续的一系列的运输链都这样的卡住了，整个系统停滞，所以说就造成了这样的一个问题。那接下来主持人就问了，所以关于这些供应链的问题，这是有一些本身比较原始的原因，还是说它整个就是这么复杂呢？那教授继续回答道，其实这也是和疫情以后供应链格局或者说是人们消费格局的一些改变是有关系的。其实在我们疫情之前，在大家还没有被困在家里之前，我们很愿意出门花钱去进行一些接受服务，比如说出门去餐厅、出门看电影等等。但是疫情以后呢，我们开始增加了一些网上的消费，比如说在亚马逊或者沃尔玛进行一些网购或者是订购，然后我们会在我们的平板电脑上也会有一些购物，也会上网买衣服等等。所以整个来说，在这个经济格局里，服务业都是主导着美国经济的一个整体产业。我们所有人的支出中，服务业支出占了70%。
But the goods side of things, goods spending went down for about 4 months, surged right back up, and now exceeds pre-pandemic levels. Services spending is still way down. So the nature of what we're buying has changed, and we've got a supply chain that's set up for an economy that no longer exists. We're in a new world.
And you point out that our entire supply chain is built for efficiency, not resilience. Explain what you mean.
Sure. During the whole era of globalization, companies increasingly prioritized making things as inexpensively as possible. That's the whole logic behind these global supply chains that take parts from all over the world, stitch them together, and perhaps do some final assembly in Mexico or the United States, and then you've got your product. That makes sense if you strip out every bit of waste and cost. And as a consequence, whenever anything goes wrong, then you're suddenly caught short. And that's
那其实我们可以从这个图表中看到，也就是我们对商品或货品的支出在4个月的下降以后，它又立马飙升回到了疫情前的水准，而大家在服务业中的支出却在不断的下降。也就是说，现在我们购买的一些东西的本质它发生了变化，就是从倾向于服务业转向了倾向于商品本身。那也就是说，我们之前的供应链，所以说它现在在应对的一种经济状况，它习惯于应对的一种经济状况，其实现在已经不存在了。那主持人继续问，那教授您刚刚提到我们供应链的构建的基础，它是以效率为基础，而不是以弹性或恢复力为基础，你能再解释一下吗？那教授就解释到，在全球化的过程中，越来越多的公司，他们都是在致力于想办法让自己的产品变得不那么贵，想办法的在削减成本。这也整个就是我们供应链中的一个逻辑，就是供应链是要把一个商品或者说是一项服务的不同部分组建在一起。那比如说美国的产品，它为了降低成本，它可能是在不同的地方进行这样的一个生产组装，最后再运回美国进行销售。那从减少成本的方面来说，这本身也是说得通的。
That's the lesson that we've learned during this crisis with the pandemic.
How do we get out of this? I mean, is this going to be as jerky, and are we going to keep seeing these delays? It's going to be a while before the whole world economy is back the way it was.
Yeah, I think many of the people we spoke to for our recent project say we have another year ahead of us of this sort of disruption. Doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be absolutely as bad as it is now, but it really has been a story of one thing after the other. You remember the Ever Given, the ship that got stuck sideways in the Suez Canal, and we had bad weather down in Texas that disrupted some key petrochemical plants, and now COVID outbreaks in Southeast Asia. Next year, in the middle of the year, the longshoreman's contract expires, and so companies are already starting to order more goods in a proactive way to try and get ahead of that potential disruption.
那所以说，教授，我们到底该如何应对像现在这样的问题？这个供应链现在遇到的一个难题，它是真的会一直持续，还是说它只是暂时性的？我们还有没有办法恢复到以前的正常状态呢？那教授解释道，现在根据很多研究项目，大家得出的结论就是，我们接下来可能还是要接下来的一年还是要应对这样的一个供应链方面的乱局。并不是说我们接下来这一年过的都会像现在这样糟糕混乱，但是回想一下我们在疫情爆发后遇到的种种问题，比如说那艘困在苏伊士运河上的货船，包括在德州的一些化工厂关停或者出现问题，以及包括东南亚疫情的爆发等等，这些问题其实都是在警惕着我们，也使得越来越多的公司他们去订购更多的产品，因为他们现在更加积极在应对这个问题，他们希望能够通过增加对于产品的订购，增加库存，来解决未来可能会出现的同样的潜在问题。
And is there a way to kind of narrow the supply chain, or is there is anyone talking about a sort of solution that doesn't require such a far-flung global supply chain?
Well, there is a lot of talk about it. There's been a lot of talk of perhaps nearshoring, of bringing factories, if not all the way back to the United States, perhaps to places like Mexico. But there's no perfect solution to this problem other than ending the pandemic. If we can end or completely contain COVID and our spending patterns return to normal, we start going out to restaurants more, start going back to concerts, start doing more of the travel and leisure spending that's taken a big hit during the pandemic, that reallocation of consumer purchases would go a long way toward fixing what's broken.
David, fascinating. Thank you so much.
Anytime.
那主持人接着问，我们现在有没有什么办法能够适当的缩小我们的供应链，或者说有没有什么比较好的解决方法能够来解决这样的一个问题呢？那其实教授回答道，我们关于这一点我们已经有过了很多的讨论，很多的研究，比如有人也提过可不可以考虑让工厂回流，比如说或者说让美国在本来墨西哥的生产可以挪回更近的地方，但是整个来说，除非整个疫情能够终止能结束，我们找不到一个非常好非常完美的解决方案。也许真的只有等到疫情结束，大家的购买模式和消费模式全部回归正常，那个时候大家可能会更多的旅游，大家在休闲方面的支出变多。休闲方面的旅游支出，这个也确实是在疫情期间遭到重大打击的一个方面。也就是说，如果大家的购物习惯或者说是消费习惯能够恢复正常，那我们整个供应链的发展的局势也才能慢慢的回归正常。
Okay. So all the topics all the issues that David Lynch, which is by no means that director David Lynch, he's a Washington Post columnist, talked about. To some extent, you have seen them in chapter 6. For example, this whole idea of the trade-off between a responsive versus an efficient supply chain. And also, if I want to give you another hint, this is something that we will review at the very end of this course in chapter 13, something called the bullwhip effect. That is basically going to explain well how this whole supply chain crisis has came together and how it's going to pan out and how it's going to be basically phase out and finish.
那其实在刚刚的视频里，这位华盛顿邮报的 David Lynch 教授或者说是评论员，他其实讲的这一些点，有一些内容是我们在第6章大家已经看到的，就是关于在供应链效率方面的一些权衡的问题。那还有一点是我们在第16章，也就是这门课它最后的时候，我们会给大家回顾到的一个方面，也就是整个供应链的危机它是如何形成，以及我们该如何消除它，如何最后终止这样的一场危机。
Okay. Any questions, any feedback, comments, discussion before we start working on the assignments?
那接下来大家有没有什么问题想问？在我们解决作业还有 case 之前，有没有人想提问
No, we're all good. Awesome. Okay. So let me close this and get a copy of the assignments here. So this is the bilingual version of the assignments. And we can go ahead and get started working on this. So in the beginning, we have 5 conceptual questions. So I will go ahead and in a participative way work on this, and then we will dive into the analytical questions.
所以我现在就把作业放出来，相信大家之前也早就收到了这份作业。我们有5个选择题和5个计算题。那首先我们会让大家一起参与到，来看一下这些选择题，然后再来开始计算题的一些讲解。
Okay, so question 1, supply chain optimization includes minimizing the total cost of manufacturing and transportation. Ji Young, what do you think? Is this correct or not? And if you can talk about it a little bit. Ji Young Wei.
那第一题就是供应链优化，包括制造与运输总成本的最小化。那刚刚教授提到的应该是 Jiang 同学，你认为应该选哪个？
我认为是正确的。
Okay, I think it is true.
Okay, that is correct. Very good. This is basically that part that I said is optional, and we will review at the end. This is one of the most important things that we will learn in Chapter 6, Supply Chain Optimization, and it's a really advanced technique that will be used. Thank you. So now let's move to question number 2 at Blair Apparel. The apparel stocks in the firm's outlet are changed every week. This is based on the changing fashion preferences of its customers. Its managers also coordinate in real time among its other stores and satisfy its customer requirements. In this case, Blair Apparel is most likely uses blank. So let's see if Barbara can answer this.
Barbara 同学，你能不能回答一下第2个选择题呢？
All right, let me try this one. I think the choice B should be the correct one. Blair Apparel applies the push and pull boundary way to organize a supply chain.
Fantastic, very good. That's correct. It's a responsive supply chain. So remember, if you remember from the text, that one of the main decisions is decision between an efficient supply chain and a responsive supply chain. And responsive supply chain is exactly what we are lacking according to the video that we watched and what's happening around the world. We have a very efficient supply chain. Almost all the supply chains are very efficient, and we have very few responsive supply chains. And that's why this whole situation of supply chain crisis is happening. So question number 3.
Hi, Professor.
Go ahead.
Here in the chat box, I see a question maybe from the video. So Minju asks that, just like this professor has said, so should we wait until the end of the pandemic to see the whole supply chain recover? Do we have other methods?
Again, I don't know the answer. I don't know the definite answer to this. I don't have a crystal ball, and if I had the answer, I was a millionaire by now. The short answer is yes, unfortunately, because changing a supply chain design, this global supply chain, even if we want to, even if everyone in the global supply chain decides to change the design today, it will take at least 5 years to bring everything, all the logistics companies, all the manufacturing companies, all the design companies, all to a new responsive supply chain. Will take at least 5 years. So most probably everybody's betting on the fact that, okay, we will handle the situation in some sort and wait for the pandemic to go away, or basically contain the pandemic. The silver bullet, there is a silver bullet, and that's vaccination of all the 7 billion people in the world.
那关于这个问题的回答，那就是可能很遗憾，现在确实除了等疫情结束，我们没有更好的方法。因为如果要改变供应链设计的话，如果是哪怕是整个供应链所有的人都要改变这个设计，可能真的是要花上5年的时间来实现每个环节都来实现这样的一个改变。所以说现在看来，我们只能真的是等到整个疫情结束，或者说想办法阻止 疫情的进一步蔓延，才能够实现这样的解决这样的一个问题。那现在来看，可能唯一一个算得上是能够解决问题的一个比较好的方法，就是尽快的推广能够让全球70亿人都用得上的疫苗。
I have two very good feedback and comments from Sylvia and Nanya in the chat. That those are all correct. Shipping containers cost is skyrocketing, and lead time is also increasing hugely. So both of these will be addressed in that second video that I talked about. If you have time, you will watch the class. Otherwise, you can go ahead and watch that. That's a 13 minutes video by 60 minutes. Okay. It's a more recent.
And Professor, because some students asked me to interpret your comments on the second question, so I will interpret for them first because some of them didn't understand.
Oh, sure.
So okay. 所以第二题的正确答案就是刚刚 Barbara 同学答到的 B， 推拉式边界，因为这也是我们在进行供应链决策中一个主要决策的方面，也就是决定。这是权衡中，就是要决定它是作为一个高效型的供应链，还是一个回应型或者说是响应型的供应链。这也是我们在决策中经常遇到的一个权衡。因为实际上着重效率、高效的供应链其实非常常见的，但是真的能够达到回应式的供应链是比较少的。所以在这里我们就是进行这样的一个方面的权衡。
Okay. So now let's move to question number 3. Blank refers to acquiring capabilities towards distribution or even customers. Mary, if you can take this question, that would be great.
Mary 同学能不能答一下第3道问题？然后刚第2个问题刚刚不小心说错了，其实是应该选 D。Mary 同学麻烦回答一下第3个问题。
I'm sorry, Professor. My screen seems very blurry. I cannot even see the questions.
Oh, that's totally
so sorry.
That's totally okay.
Can you pass it over to someone else?
Sure.
I will answer it next time. Sorry.
Some people have answered in the chat box, Professor. Yeah.
No worries. That's totally okay. Yeah, I see that a few of you, Linda, Chungking, and Yinghua, they all answered, and they all answered give the correct answer. This is forward integration. Remember, if you remember from the video, we have 2 different types of integration: forward integration and backward integration. So we have this whole supply chain in the middle. We have the focal firm, and upstream we have your suppliers and your suppliers, and your in downstream you have your customers and customers. Okay, if you acquire in the downstream, if you purchase or basically take the ownership of your distributors, which are your customers, and your customers, which are wholesalers or retailers, that is called forward integration. The other way, if you acquire your suppliers or your suppliers, this is called backward integration.
确实是选择前向整合。那其实大家也是在我们之前的阅读中有了解到，就是整个的供应链它分为上游和下游这样的过程中，其中比如说就包括了你的供应商及你供应商的供应商，那往下就还包括了你的顾客以及你顾客的顾客，所以前向和后向的整合也就是这两者之间的区别。那这道题我们选择的应该就是前向的整合，也就是响应供应商，就是响应你接下来的就是下游你的客户和他们的客户这样的。
I also have another comment in the chat from Nanyan about the pull and push system, how to understand that. In the video, you can refer back to the video and the text for the details of push and pull system. The whole idea, again, is that if you consider the whole supply chain, the focal firm, distributors, and retailers, and also your suppliers and suppliers, if you there is something called the coupling point, okay? The point that your upstream is basically separated from your downstream. The more you push your decoupling point towards your customers, you have basically a push system. So basically, for example, suppose that there is a car manufacturing company that based on some forecasting is manufacturing cars and is pushing them to dealerships and is waiting in the dealerships for customers to come and buy the car. That's a push production system. On the other hand, we have pull production, which you do not manufacture anything unless there is an order for it. So basically, you bring the decoupling point all the way towards the suppliers, and you wait for the customers to place an order, then it goes to dealership, and then it goes to the focal firm and all the way. That would be a pull production. Dell is a very famous company for doing postponement and also a pioneer of pull production.
Yeah. 那其实关于推拉边界到底是什么，你们各位同学在之前的录像课，包括一些材料里也能够看到。也就是说，还是我们的供应链当中，它有一个整个的你的核心工厂公司，包括你的零售商、客户端以及你的供应链端。那在这里我们有一个缓冲库存点，它就是把上游和下游进行了这样的一个区分。如果说是推动式的边界的话，它其实指的就是这个缓冲的库存点，你是在把这个库存点往顾客那边推。也就是说，比如说你是一个汽车的工厂，那你是想办法去让顾客购买你的商品，这就属于一种推动式。那拉动式的呢，就是它并不是本身它不怎么就是不制造任何东西，它其实是在把这个缓冲库存点往你的供应商那边去拉，也就是说是希望就是说核心公司是希望通过供应商能够供应出来的一些产品，然后让消费者再自己下单购买。
Okay, now let's move to question number 4 if there are no questions. Roos and West Incorporation is an automobile manufacturing firm. It produces and assembles all parts of automobiles in its factory and later ships the finished products to its storehouses. The managers at the storehouses distribute the goods to wholesalers. Customers then buy the products from the wholesaler. In this scenario, the push-pull boundary for Roos and West Incorporation is at the blank. So this is open to the class. Who wants to take this? Do we have a volunteer here?
那第4题有没有同学愿意主动回答一下？大家可以直接发言或者打在聊天框里。Oh, there are different answers in the chat box. Most people choose B, but some also choose C.
That is correct. B is correct. Okay, yeah. So wholesaler is correct. Again, remember the customers come to, so the way that you can separate the upstream and downstream is the flow of, is when customer takes its product, when you wait for customer order. So in this case, we are waiting in the wholesaler section, in the wholesaler phase. We are waiting for customer to come and pick up the products. Okay, if there's they make an order and then come and pick it up there. Yeah. So that is the decoupling point or the push-pull boundary, basically.
Yeah.
The wholesaler.
对，那这题的确实正确答案就是选 B， 因为这就是选择批发商。因为我们确实把上游和下游切开，也就是说实现这样的一个缓冲库存点，它本质上就是也是要看顾客做怎样的决定。我们其实本质上就是在等着顾客去做出这样的一个是否购买的决定。那这也是推拉边界中的一个比较要点比较重要的东西。所以这一题就确实是选择批发商。
So now a question for class: Is this Roos and West a push production system or a pull production system?
那根据这题，那我想再问一下大家觉得这个题干里的 Roos and West 这个公司，它是属于推动式的还是推动式的，还是属于拉动式的
？Push. Very good. That's a push production system. That's good.
Yeah.
Very good. So I guess that it is working and everybody's understanding the concept correctly. Okay, so now let's move to question number 5. Okay, the W sub I or WI, typically used in the numerator and denominator of the center of gravity equation, represents the blank. Again, this is open to class. Who wants to take this?
那第5题有没有同学想回答一下？还是可以打在聊天框里。
Very good. I have a few, okay, a huge number of answers, correct answers. That's correct. C is the correct answer. Volume of goods and services moved to or from location I. Basically, the center of gravity is, if you remember from the class, from the video lecture videos, is a simple weighted average. Okay, so we take an average of the x and y coordinates, but we assign a weight to each of those x and y's. We will see an example in our case study. We will assign a weight, and that weight could be for example, here the goods and services moved to or from that location, the amount of orders. In the case study, we have the population of that area as the weight. So this is basically weight, and that's why it is W.
那确实这道题就是选 C， 也就是产品 I 产品或服务移到或移出地点的数量。那关于重心法，我们在后面的 case 里面也会讲解到这一点，就是它其实是通过 LY 坐标来得出一个最后所有值的加权平均，也就是说我们可能通过了解需求、供应量或者是当地人口等等要素，通过加权平均来算出最后的一个需要的一个坐标。那我们在后面的 case 里面，包括计算题，我们也会详细的讲一下重心法。
Fantastic. Are there any questions before we move to our second half, which is the analytical questions?
那在讲计算题前，请问一下大家现在还有什么问题想问？
No, we're good.
Maybe, sorry, Professor Baba, maybe I have one question for the question two. Could you please explain in more detail that what is the difference between the pull-push boundary and the response supply chain?
Yes, for the push-pull boundary, let me give me 1 second. Let me pull up because I need to explain it on a graph for you if you want. So give me 1 second. Okay, so this is, forget about everything that you see here on the screen. Just take a look at this. This is my supply chain. This is my typical supply chain. I have my suppliers, I have my factory, my dealers, and my customers, okay? So this is that decoupling point or push-pull boundary, okay? So what does it mean? It means that the company, for example, General Motors is an example for a pull manufacturing, okay? From all the way from suppliers to factory to the dealership, the production is being done based on some forecast, okay, not based on the actual demand, okay, based on some forecast of the demand, which we will cover in chapter 9. Based on the forecasting, production is being done, and then based on that, factory buys supply from suppliers and then assembles the products and send them to the dealership. And the assembled car, the final product, sits in the dealership for the customer to come and buy it, okay? This part of the supply chain is pull, and this part is push. So since this is more push compared to pull, this is a push production, okay? On the other hand, here we have pull production in case of Dell. Dell does not make anything, does not even place an order unless there is an order from the customer, okay? Customer places an order and factory receives the order from the customer and then places an order with its suppliers, okay? So the problem here is that this is a very interesting type of supply chain, but the problem is the problem that we are seeing these days. Okay, it requires a very, very lean supply chain and a very, very basically fast supply chain. If there is a problem, if there is a disruption, it would be a huge problem. Could you please explain the center of gravity calculations? Yes, I will do that through an example.
So I will explain this part first. 那关于这个推拉系统、推动和拉动式的系统，教授给大家这幅图，大家之前在 PPT 也看到过，来进一步解释。那通过在下面的就是这个通用汽车里面的图，我们可以看到有一个点，这个点就是我们的缓冲库存点，它就把上游和下游给切分开来。那缓冲库存点在这里，整个商品工厂的生产，它是基于预测来进行的，而不是基于需求来进行的。也就是说，工厂基于预测来进行了生产，然后供应商进行，然后就是供应商购买、组装，最后再把这些产品给到经销商，那经销商然后最后再给到顾客。所以可以看到，就是供应商和工厂这一环是属于推动式，那顾客那一端是属于拉动式。因为这边推动式还是大于拉动式的，所以整个通用汽车就是属于一个推动式的。那戴尔在上面的这幅图里面就可以看到，戴尔就反过来，它是一个完全是属于拉动式。就是说，戴尔如果没有收到来自客户的一些需求或者订单的话，他们就根本不会开始生产。所以他们是收到了客户的订单、客户的需求以后再开始生产。那其实这种模式在现在疫情当下确实会引发一些问题，因为如果要保证一个拉动式的生产的话，那就是拉动式的系统，那也就说明我们的这个供应链需要非常的精益、非常的精简，同时也非常的快捷，要不然如果遇上像疫情这样的突发情况，那可能就会有比较严重的问题。
Very good. Did I answer all the questions? Or did I miss anything?
这位Christy 同学，你的问题是不是都得到解答了？还有什么想问的吗？
Yes, many thanks. Yes, I fully understand now for the push, how to say, push system. Yeah.
Very good, very good. And then again, if you want to go back to any of these topics, you can go back to the slides and also the videos. And on the slides, which I believe are available to you, there is a note at the bottom of each slide that you can read. And also definitely you have the textbook.
那接下来，如果同学们还有对应的问题，也可以再回去继续看一下我们的 PPT， 包括我们的 reading， 包括所有的讲解内容，还有我们的录像课里面都有一些比较详细的讲解。
Fantastic. Okay, now let's go ahead and get started with our analytical questions. First question, a company has two alternatives for meeting a customer requirement for 880,000 units of a part used in office printers. If done in-house, fixed cost would be $1,400,000 with variable cost of $1.9 per unit. Alternative 2 is to outsource for a total cost of $3.5 per unit. Determine the break-even point and determine if they should make the item in-house or outsource it.
那接下来我们进入计算题。第一题，也就是通过题干的部分，大家可以看到这是一个盈亏分析点的盈亏平衡点的问题。
Okay, so now this is a break-even question. So what I will do, I will use the break-even template that is available to you, and it's basically part of the textbook which is available to you, and also we can use for all these questions. Okay, so let me bring a copy of the question here so we know what we are talking about. Let me copy the Chinese version as well.
那这一题我们是通过这个盈亏平衡点的这个分析的 Excel 表格来进行解答，来进行做这个题。那这个表格之前已经在 M 云上分享给大家，大家也都是可以下载使用，相信大家也在录像课里看了一下该怎么用。那我现在就把题目给复制过来，我们来进行解题。
So as you can see here, we have three different panes. One is for profitability analysis, one for outsourcing decisions, and one for technology decisions. technically, I mean, practically, they are all the same, okay? They are all the same, and they are all doing the same break-even analysis that I explained in the video, and I basically draw the graph and everything for you. So if you want to go back to the concept of break-even analysis, you can go back to the video and the text. But this is the pane that we will use because this is an outsourcing decision. We're going to go ahead and use this pane.
那在这里我们可以看到3个小表格，分别是进行盈利能力分析、外包决策分析以及技术决策分析。其实这3个分析本质上都是一样的，大家的计算方法都是一样，所以我已经把这个表给做好了，大家可以直接用这个模板。如果还有对模板有点不清楚的，大家可以继续回到我们录像课的内容来看一下它的具体使用。那这道题因为是有关于做出外包的是否外包的选择，所以我们用的是中间这个外包决策表。
So here we want to find the break-even quantity. First, we want to find the break-even quantity. So we don't have the quantity, so we delete this part. And we plug in the fixed cost. Our fixed cost here for manufacturing in-house is $880, I'm sorry, it is $1,400,000. So I will plug in $1,400,000 here. And then the variable cost for manufacturing in-house is going to be 1.9. So I will put 1.9 here. And then for outsourcing, the unit cost is $3.5. By the way, do you want me to use the bilingual version of the templates? Because I don't have it for all other chapters. Last semester, they sent it to me, but for this chapter, I don't have the bilingual version. So if you have that, you can send it to me. So I can...
Okay, I can. I think we have uploaded the bilingual one on our platform for students to use. So I think they can understand it now. And if you need the bilingual one, I will send it to you.
No, I don't need it. But if it's a problem,
各位同学看这个表格看懂应该没有问题吧？需不需要双语的表格？因为教授这边现在只有一个单语的版本，然后双语的之前是大家在平台上已经发过去。Okay, yes, everyone can understand this template.
So we can continue, okay?
Yeah.
So for outsourcing, obviously there are no... So for
okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, 大家稍微关一下麦，不好意思。Yeah, continue now. We can.
Sure. So for outsourcing, obviously there's no fixed cost because we are outsourcing the product, and the cost is $3.5 per unit, and unit cost for making the product in-house is 1.9, and the fixed cost is $1,400,000. So now we need to find the quantity. In order to do that, we need to find a quantity that makes these two costs the same, or basically the cost difference would be 0 between in-house and outsourcing.
所以说，那我们现在就根据题干来输入每个数据。那首先就是固定成本，就是如果内部生产的固定成本和可变的单位成本分别都输入。那包括外包的每单位成本、每件总成本也是输入。大家输入以后呢，我们需要了解的就是得出一个数量，就是使这个数量能够达到二者的这个成本是一样，最后就能找到这个盈亏平衡点在哪里。也就是说，我们是要实现内部生产和外包生产一样，才能得到这个盈亏平衡点。And we can see someone has typed in the chat box as DOSIC. Yeah, that's the function we need to use.
That's correct. Very good, Christy. Thank you. That's correct. That's the function that we will use here. So as Christy mentioned, we will click on data and we go on the what if analysis and click on goal seek. Okay. And then here we will set this cell, which is the difference between the two costs, between the cost of outsourcing and in-house production. We set that to 0 by changing the quantity. Okay. In effect, we are telling Excel to go ahead and plug in different numbers here. Okay. Until you get 0 here. Okay, so Excel is too dumb to be able to solve an algebraic equation. It solves it by trial and error. Okay, but since it's a computer and it's too fast, it can do it much faster than solving an algebraic equation.
那关于解答这个问题，我们就是打开 Excel 中的数据栏，数据栏中有一个模拟分析，模拟分析再点开下面有一个单变量求解， 如果有同学用的是英文版的 Excel， 就分别是 What if analysis 下面的 go seek， 然后再根据要求分别输入我们的固定值以及我们需要得到的改变值、改变量，也就是我们这边需要求解的数量。
Okay, so one more time, the E17 equal to 0 by changing E5, and we click OK, it turns and it gives us 875,000.
Yeah. Someone also typed the answer. Yeah, that's the correct one.
Very good. That's correct, Anya. Correct. So this is our break-even point. Okay. So now tell me, we have the customer requirement of 880,000. Okay. So what is the decision? Should we do it in-house or should we outsource it?
那既然已经得出了盈亏平衡点，那现在题干说的是某公司需要生产88万个，那根据这个数据，大家觉得应该是选择 in-house， 也就是说内部生产还是外包生产呢？大家可以再回答一下。
Correct. Mingyu says that in-house, that is correct. A lot of other answers, Yinghua and Chongqing and Wanger Fun. Everybody's saying that it is in-house. That's good. Thank you, guys. That is correct. Okay, so technically, since this 8,800, 880,000, I'm sorry, 880,000 is more than 875,000, you have to do it in-house. Okay, whenever we are above the break-even point, it means that it makes sense to do it in-house and invest in the fixed cost. Okay, if our volume is less than break-even, we should always do it. We should always outsource it because it doesn't make sense to invest in the fixed cost.
确实在这里根据我们的这个盈亏平衡点的计算，大家都得出了正确的回答，也就是选择内部生产。因为在这种情况下，我们根据这个题干可以了解，根据题干的就是根据这些数据，我们能够得出内部生产对于公司来说成本是更低的，也是更划算的。如果在这里计算得出是外包更划算的话，也就是说如果公司要生产的数量是小于我们刚刚得到的盈亏平衡点，那这个时候外包就是更合适的选择。
Okay, but technically, if you want to use the template, we can go ahead and plug in this 880,000 here. And then you see that the choice is in-house. Automatically, it is selected for us. And we see that the cost of outsourcing is more than cost of doing it in-house with the difference of $8,000.
Yeah. 就如果大家在计算这个表格的时候，大家是输入了这个给定的量，就是88万的这个量，那我们最后得到的结果，也就是说 in-house 内部生产是比外包的成本要少8000，所以通过这个方法也是能够做出这样的一个选择的。
However, I want you all to take a step back, take a minute and listen. This part is pretty important. Take a minute and take a step back. This $8,000, is it significant at all?
那现在我想让大家思考一个比较重要的问题，就是这8000元的这个差距，大家觉得真的有那么大，或者说有那么重要吗？
We're talking about millions, okay? All the numbers are in millions of dollars, 3 million, 1 million, 4 million. And this $8,000 is very, very, as you can say, I see many answers are saying no. So we can say that it is almost a break-even point, okay? So now that the break-even point is basically not helping us, okay? Break-even point is saying that the difference is $8,000, okay? So it's a coin toss. Let's say flip of a coin. What should I do? What should, think about it conceptually. What should be the decision?
那在这种情况下，大家很多人也都得出了这样一个结论，就是在我们目前很多的案例里面出现的都是可能上百万的这种差异，但是在这个题目里面，它只存在8000美元的成本的差异，所以说这个其实就是非常接近一个盈亏平衡点。那这种情况下，大家可以考虑一下，这个时候是不是做出这个盈亏平衡点对于这个决策是不是还有那么的就是帮助还有那么大，是不是就真的就是要按照这样的一个盈亏平衡点来做出这样的决策呢？
I see that Barbara says it depends. That's correct. It depends. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? What depends on what criteria?
Barbara 同学，你既然说了这取决于具体情况，你能不能来讲解一下你的看法？你觉得到底要考虑什么方面的因素呢？
I think maybe a bit nervous because from the normal business sense, if we think this is a high-tech building, we want to protect the technology, core technology or computation advantage. We will not say this is a big difference. We will make this in-house. But this is something not that high technology, and we are so sensitive on that point. And think the cost benefit is something we want to earn, so we will go to in-house in this case.
Very good, very good. That's correct. That's correct. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
And also, I see a good answer from Nanyan. Depends on the in-house capacity, delivery, and so on. That's also correct. Okay, so we need to see what is the reliability of the supplier. Okay, and if the reliability of the supplier is like very good and it's a gold standard of the industry, it makes sense to do it that way though. Quality of the product that we do in-house compared to the quality of the product that we receive from the supplier. Is the suppliers more sustainable than us? Because that's also pretty important. Remember from the triple bottom line that we talked about, is our production in-house saving us $8,000, but are we harming the environment and are putting pressure on the customers or our employees? These are all the decisions that all the criteria that we need to basically consider for our final decision.
那所以确实，刚刚巴布尔同学的回答很好，包括在聊天框里南样同学说的，取决到内部生产的能力，包括运输等这些因素都是我们要考虑的。所以说，在这个二者之间成本的差异没这么大的情况下，我们有的时候就要考虑一下内部生产和外包生产它们分别的质量，或者说外包生产是不是比内部生产的可持续性更强。比如说我们在这章中也提到的，我们自己生产会不会对环境造成的损害要更大呢？那这些都是我们在做决策时要考量的一些因素。
Okay, so now let's go to question number 2. Industrial Products Incorporation has 2 alternatives for manufacturing a 12,000 industrial 100 horsepower electric motors per year. If done in-house, the fixed cost would be $2,100,000, with variable cost at $6,800 per unit. Alternative 2 is to outsource for a total cost of $7,300 per unit. So here again, we are doing is there a question?
Yeah, I typed the question in the chat box because I omitted it at first, and then I resubmit it on the platform, so everyone knows the question.
Yes, so the question is, what is a break-even and should it be done in-house or outsourced? So again, let me get a copy of this question and bring it here so we know what we are talking about. We can make a copy of this. Okay. So now again, we are going to go ahead and use the same thing for outsourcing decisions. Okay, so here we have a fixed cost of $2,100,000. So I will go ahead and plug that in here, $2,100,000. That's going to be the cost, fixed cost of doing in-house. And my variable cost is $6,800. Okay. And if I outsource this whole thing, the cost is going to be $7,300, and obviously there is no fixed cost. Okay, so again, I will go ahead and do the goal seek analysis. Let me move this thing around. So click on data and click on what if analysis and click on goal seek. Here I want to put the cost difference, which is E17 equal to 0, by changing this cell, which is my quantity.
那这一题的计算其实跟上一题也是一样的，相信大家比较熟悉了，就是根据题干要求，把每一个数据都输入到模板的对应位置，然后还是通过模拟分析中的单变量求解这个来进行解答。
Okay, so I click OK here, it churns and it gives me that 4,200. So 4,200 is my break even. Okay, so my break even quantity is 4,200. Okay, so now The second part of this question, as you can see in the chat box, it says that should the firm make in-house or outsource? Okay, so what is my, without using the template, you should be able to answer this now that we know that the break-even quantity is 4,200 and we need 12,000. What should be done?
那根据第一个题的答案，大家觉得第二题公司应该选择内部生产还是外包生产呢？我们已经得出了盈亏平衡点是4200。
Very good. I see. Yes, all the correct answers. Yes, this is in-house. So again, very good, very good. Thank you, guys. So if I want to use the template, I will go ahead and plug in 12,000 here, and you see that it gives me the in-house answer. And you see that the difference this time is not only $8,000. The difference is around $4 million. So it is significant, and we should do anything to do this in-house.
那大家的回答都正确，确实应该选择内部生产。而且这一题，如果我们输入需要的量来计算的话，我们会发现二者成本的差异达到了近400万美元。所以就单纯的根据这个成本的差异，我们也可以非常自信的、非常确定的选出要内部生产这个选择。
Okay, fantastic. Now let's move to question number 3. Microserve provides computer repair services on a contract basis to customers in 5 sections of the city. The 5 sections, the numbers of service contracts in each section, and the XY coordinates of each section are as follows. Use the center of gravity method to determine an ideal location for a service center.
那这一题大家可以通过题干看到，这一题就是通过重心法来确定选址这样的一个题目。
Okay, so as you can see, this is a center of gravity question. So I will go ahead and use the center of gravity template. So let me go ahead and pull that up. Okay, so this is my center of gravity template, and I can go ahead and use this. Okay, so so let me go ahead and print this here.
Hi, Professor. Some students say that the screen is a bit blurry.
Oh, okay. Could be my internet connection. Let's see.
OK， 同学们现在看得清吗？在聊天框里打一下，看看刚刚暂时是有一阵模糊的，看一下现在是不是还有这个问题。Yeah, it's okay now. Just now, it was a moment of blurry screen, maybe due to the connection.
Is it any better now?
No, it's better now. Yeah, everyone can see it now. Yeah.
I disconnected my it says my internet connection is unstable. I disconnected my Wi-Fi, so it's hotwired now. So
yeah,
if it is a very peak time right now.
Yeah, okay?
Yeah. So it's around 5:30 p.m. on a Friday afternoon. Everybody's watching TV and and playing games. So, and I'm at home. So, it might be the case that the internet is suffering a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what I will do, I will go ahead and enter this data here in order to save a little time. So here I have my different centers from Parkview, Mount Airy, Valley, Norwood, and Southgate. I will go ahead and plug them here. And in order to save a little time, I copy and paste them. And then I have the X coordinates and Y coordinates for all of these, and as well as the volume. So X and Y coordinates for each of these sections, I will go ahead and enter them. Again, in order to save a little time, I do a copy and paste, and the volume is right here. Again, I will go ahead and copy and paste the volume so we can work on the actual problem. Okay, so as you can see, my center of gravity would be 1118 and 6.99.
Yeah. 那这一题也是根据这个模板，我们首先把每个地区名称，教授把它们给复制到了模板的表格里，然后对应的输入它们的 X 坐标、Y 坐标以及货物量，那通过表格计算就可以得出了最后的一个重心法的一个坐标。
Okay, so as you can see, so one quick thing about this is that the formula that we are using here is the sum product. Okay, so sum product of all these x coordinates times weight divided by all the weights, sum of all the weights. Okay, so sum product of the two columns divided by the sum of all the weights. Same thing for y. This is the formula that we are using.
那我们可以看到，如果大家点击一下这个结果栏，这个可以看到我们使用的函数是 sum product 万能函数，也就是说我们进行的其实是 x 轴 y 轴的一个加权平均值的计算，我们就通过一个加权计算的方法来得出了最后的坐标值。
This will be quite helpful. This is a very helpful formula to use. We will use it also in the case study when we are building some sort of weighted average of our own.
那这个公式其实这个函数本身是很有用、很常用。我们在接下来案例分析的讲解中也会用到这个函数、这个公式来解决问题。
Okay, so now so these are the 5 locations, but if I want to include the center of gravity as well, I can include that, and you can see that this will be added. This is going to be my center of gravity. So we'll go ahead and mark that with a different color, so you know what is happening. So you see that this is my center of gravity, 1118 and 6.9.
Okay, yeah. 所以说我们通过这个在右边的这个图表里面，大家也可以看到每一个点都在坐标轴上给列出来。那我们也可以把这个重心法得出的这个坐标点给加进去，最后就能达到我们的这个重心点到底在哪。And Professor, we can see a question in the chat box. So Amanda asks that, so is the XY coordinate, can we track it geographically?
Very good question. Very good question. It could be geographically, it could be just arbitrary. Okay, so it is totally up to you. You can use, for the sake of convenience, whichever is more convenient for you. You can use geographic X and Y, or you can just overlay a coordinate of your choice and put a center of coordinate 0, 0 somewhere and do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 all the way.
Amanda 这个问题问得非常到位，确实我们这个是取决于大家的选择，我们确实可以使用地理上的坐标点，但是大家也可以根据自己的考量自建坐标轴来自选一个点，你可以自选一个原点，然后进行一些 XY 坐标的一些确定和使用。
Okay, so now let's I see that there is another question.
Yeah, that's Renfan's response to Amanda. I think so. He says that I think this is considered just on this graph, but it didn't consider the natural environment.
I'm sorry, didn't get the comment.
Yeah, he says that, so I believe the center of gravity method, in this method, the X and Y coordinates are just decided on the graph or on the table, but it doesn't consider the nature environment, right?
By nature environment, you mean the environmental sustainability or like the geographic location?
那在这里，王同学，你指的这个自然环境，你认为的它是我们考虑到的可持续性的这样的一个概念，还是说就是把整个地理要素都算进去？ And Sunny asked that, is it considered the transportation?
No, this is not a very good question. This is not a transportation problem. Transportation problem is a different problem that we will solve if we have time at the end. That would be a optimization problem. This is just the center of gravity that finds where is the center basically for building a warehouse or distribution center.
对，Sunny 这个问题问得很好。我们这个问题里是没有考虑到运输条件的。我们运输条件会有另外的表格是来考虑另外的优化问题。那大家有空回头也可以去看一些其他的问题，但在这个问题里并没有考虑到运输条件。So Renfan responds that here for nature environment, he thinks it's about geography and transportation.
Very good, very good. That's correct. You can use either the geographical coordinates or basically an arbitrary basically method of coordinates, and that volume could be the basically traffic, the amount that you're shipping, and so many other things. Again, as I said in the case study, we will discuss this a little bit further. So now let's move to question number 4, if there are no questions. A university currently...
Hi, Professor. The screen becomes blurry again.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, for a while.
Sorry, give me 1 second. Let me see.
Yeah.
Maybe...
Yeah, it's okay now. It's clear now.
It is clear. Okay. So if it happened again, maybe we should all go ahead and turn off our videos. Okay.
Yeah.
So for now, if it is good, if it continues, we should all turn off our videos.
Okay. Yeah.
So question number 4, the university currently has a recycling program for paper waste. The fixed cost of running this program is $15,000 per year. The variable cost for picking up and disposing of each ton of recyclable paper is $40. If the work is outsourced to a recycling company, the cost would be $65 per ton. And here we have 2 questions. If the forecasted demand is 750 tons, what should the university do? Use a break-even Excel template and find the break-even point. Okay, so this is again a very similar question to what we have done so far. Do you want me to review this, or you are good?
Yeah. 那这个问题其实跟前面的2道题都是一样的解法。那大家觉得还要不要再讲这个题目？ Yeah, we think that we don't need to review this again, so maybe we can jump to the next one.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, very good. And I also have a comment from Gazy Zhu.
She says, yeah, I think it's a pinyin version that said we don't need to review this again. Thank you. Yeah.
I'm learning a little Chinese here then.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then finally, question number 5, the Davis National Drugstore chain prefers to operate one outlet in a town that has 4 major market segments. The number of potential customers in each segment along with the coordinates are as follows. And here we are using a center of gravity Excel template again to find the best location. Again, this is a repeat of the center of gravity question. If anyone needs me to go over that, we can definitely do that. Otherwise, we can skip to the case study.
那这题也又是一道中心法的问题，有没有同学需要我来再讲一遍？如果不需要的话，我们就进行下面的后面 case 的学习。Yeah, we all think that yes, we can skip this one because we already reviewed one in the.
Fantastic. Yeah. Okay. So now let me go ahead and close this file then, and move to our case study. Let's pull up.
Yeah.
While I'm pulling up the bilingual version of the case study, can someone volunteer to tell us what was the story? What was the whole idea? What was the whole thing that was happening in our case study?
那在我打开这个双语版的案例之前，我想先问一下，有没有同学愿意自告奋勇来给大家总结一下这个案例讲的大概到底是怎么一回事？它到底是想解决一个什么样的问题呢？有没有人来总结一下？
Couple of minutes, 1-2 minutes. Let's wait on it.
Yeah.
So if there are no answers, let me ask you this question. So let's take a look. Where are they building this new ballpark, this new stadium?
好的，那我现在就来，如果大家没人回答，那我就来导入这样的几个问题。首先就是他们是在哪里建的这个新的体育馆？大家能不能回答一下？可以打在聊天框，也可以直接那个开麦回答。
It's a city in Florida. Little hint. Where is it?
Yeah, someone has typed in the chat box.
Florida. Where in Florida? Someone said Boston and someone said Florida. Okay.
Yeah.
So where in Florida it is?
那具体是在佛罗里达的哪个部分？有人能回答出来吗？
Did you find it?
Yeah. some has said is County Lee.
Okay. Lee County, Florida.
Yeah, Lee County. Yeah.
So you see that this is Florida, and this is Boston. What's happening? Boston Red Sox is a team in Boston, and they are making a stadium in Florida. It's like 20 hours drive, 24 hours, 22 hours drive, almost 21.5-hour drive. Why they are doing that?
那我们在地图上可以看到，其实波士顿它和这个 Florida 的里线中间隔的这个距离大概是开车要22小时才能到达。所以说，为什么一个波士顿的队伍他想要在里线来就是距离还蛮远的这样的一个地方来建这个体育馆呢？有没有人想回答一下？
Is this a typo? Is it a mistake?
这难道是出于某种错误吗？ Because the land is cheaper.
The land is cheaper. That was a good guess. Okay.
Because there are so many factors that will influence the decision maker in the end.
That's correct. That's correct. That's correct. What are those factors?
It will include. Let me see. All population, for example, cost, and cost also include stadium land cost, additional utility cost, and so on. So, multiple costs,
Right.
and also we'll consider the environment protection. Yeah, and.
Yeah, this is all correct. These are all correct, but we will talk about this those all in a second. But those are all in the Lee County, okay? About from different different locations that you have, and another answer that I have from Barbara to develop the industry around this area. These are all correct, but my question is a little trivial question. Boston is in a whole different state in Massachusetts, and it's a 23 hours drive to get to. If a Boston team is having a game, why should people from Boston drive all the way to Lee County in Florida 23 hours? Isn't it illogical?
Yeah. 那其实大家讲的因素确实都是有道理，我们在后面也会提到。但我现在想问大家一个更细微一点的问题，就是这个波士顿它位于马赛诸塞州，那为什么一个波士顿的球队它要选择在里线来建那个体育馆？这样万一这个波士顿的队伍有比赛的话，为什么大家观众真的就要开23小时的车到里线去看这个波士顿球队的比赛呢？大家觉得这可能是出于什么样的原因呢？
Okay, so let me answer that. This is a very common practice for East Coast. Okay, so states here in Boston, in Massachusetts, Washington, Virginia, New York, and so on, New Hampshire, and so on. This East Coast of the United States during the winter would be very, very cold. Okay, so if you want to have practices during winter, Florida is one of the biggest choices because it is close relatively compared to like Texas or California and so on, and it also has a very, very nice weather and during the winter. So this is a practice that many East Coast teams will do. Okay, so that's that trivial part. But now let's go ahead.
OK， 那其实关于这个问题的解答，这其实属于东海岸很多球队或者说是类似的公司都会做出的一个决策。那像马赛诸塞、华盛顿，包括弗吉尼亚这些地方，他们的冬天都是非常寒冷的。所以如果球队想在冬天保持正常的练习的话，佛罗里达对他们来说是一个最好的选择，因为佛罗里达相对加州或其他地方来说，地理位置要更接近，而且气候也非常的好，就很适合球队在冬天进行训练。
Now let's go ahead and review the questions one by one. So It's the first question. Okay, so the first question, using the center of gravity model and exhibit 6.12, compute the center of gravity for the population of the county. Show all computations, explain and justify based solely on this criterion. Where is the best stadium location?
那我们第一题也还是大家熟悉的，就是运用重心法来计算这个县的人口重心，然后根据人口重心，大家来判断一下最佳球场的选址应该是在哪里。
Okay, so based on what you have done, which site do you think is the best? Only based on the center of gravity, which site is the best location? Okay.
那如果单纯的就是依照重心法的计算，大家觉得应该是选择哪个地方呢？
We have site A, site B, site C, and site D. Which one should we choose?
那现在题干里是给出了 A、B、C、D 4个地点，以及给出了它们相关的数据和坐标。那根据重心法的计算，大家觉得应该是选择哪个？就如果单看重心法的标准，大家觉得哪个最适合？
Only based on the center of gravity.
Yeah, someone has answered in the chat box.
Okay, 3 by 3 you mean
Yeah.
site C?
大家这个3指的是哪个3？指的是人口中心3吗？还是选址 C？
So close to 3, okay, close to
Yeah.
3 population.
Populations.
So that would be D or A. Okay. Okay, let's take a look. Let's take a look. This is a simple center of gravity, and I will go ahead and pull up a center of gravity template. Okay, and again, in order to save a little time, I will go ahead and copy and paste everything. Okay, so we have 5 different population centers. Okay, so we'll enter them, and this one is 5. Okay, so you see that my center of gravity would be 4.49 and 7.83. Okay, so if I want to include that as well, you can see that my okay, so 4.49 and 7.83. So based on this, which where should I which site should I choose? A, B, C, or D?
那根据这个坐标，我们得出的坐标，然后也得出了它的一个最后的这样的一个重心点。大家觉得根据点，我们 A、B、C、D 到底该选哪个呢？
Okay, so you see that 4.49 is around here, and 7.83 is around here. So as you can say, you were right. It's close to population center 3. But which one should I choose? Site A, site B, C, or D?
那大家刚刚给的回答也是正确的，就确实我们最后得出的点是很靠近人口中心3。那 A、B、C、D 大家觉得该选哪个呢？
So you see that B and C are pretty far from this population center, and A and D are both good. A is pretty closer. So this is only based on the center of gravity method. Okay. Now we have some other information here in the case as well. Okay. What are those information?
那确实，这里大家的解答也是对的，就是单纯的根据重心法来判断，我们可以看到选址 A 是离这个重心最近，所以我们该选 A。但是这个题干里还有很多其他的信息需要我们来考虑，所以大家来想一想，题干里还提到了哪些信息是会对我们的选址决策产生影响的呢？
See that we have this information as well.
Here someone answers about the parking area.
Okay, so how can I incorporate all these? Okay, so you see that my second question says that using a weighted scoring model of your own, design what are the summary scores for each stadium. Okay, based on the qualitative criterion that you have in this exhibit 630. Okay, so you see that we have a number of criteria here. We have some cost. Okay, so land cost, additional utility cost, new road cost, and the rest are, so far these 3 are, all 3 are All three are only costs, all numbers. Okay, so we can treat them as numbers, maybe do a weighted average or some sort. But the rest are, you see that gaining environmental group endorsement and so on and so forth, they are all qualitative. How can I incorporate all those? You see that this is a multi-criterion decision.
Yeah. 那根据这张表，大家可以看到前面的几个像土地成本、公用设施成本这些因素已经给出了一个数据，所以这些数据我们可以可能考虑进一个模式，考虑进一个公式，我们来计算，根据题干来推出这样的一个加权平均的算法来计算。但是中间的这么几个要素，它并没有进行量化，它给出的都是一些评价。那大家觉得根据这几个没有量化标准的指标，我们应该怎么考虑？毕竟这是一个多标准的决策，我们需要都考虑在内的。
1 or 2 minutes, let's spend on this, and then I will give you.
Here, Sunny says maybe we can give a score to each of these standards.
Very good. Okay, that's correct. Okay, so for example, here when we have the given environmental group's endorsement, if it's almost, it's no, it's yes. Okay, so we can say it's between 1 and 5. Okay, so yes would be 5, almost would be a 3 or 4, and no would be 0, for example. That way we quantify all these qualitative information.
那确实 Sunny 的这个回答很正确。那对于这些定性的标准，我们可以通过进行赋值的方式来对它们进行量化的考量。比如说我们可以通过1到5进行打分，如果是 yes 有，那我们可以给5分，快了可以给3到4分，如果是无，我们就给0分。通过这样的量化标准，可以对这些定性的这些标准也进行一个定量。
I see that in the chat, Charlotte says cost. Charlotte, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Charlotte 的同学，你打出这个 cost， 你是想表达什么样的一个含义呢？你能不能解释一下你的想法？Okay, she was answering the previous question about what we should consider.
Very good. So for example, let's take a look at site A. Okay, what is the total cost here?
那我们接下来先看选址 A， 大家看到这里的总成本是有多少？ Yeah, 21 million.
21 million. So 21 million, and for the second one, as you can see, it's 23 million, and so on and so forth. So let's build a little table here. Okay, again, I'm copying and pasting it from previous calculations. So I have site A 21 million, site B 23 million, site C 18 million, and site D 24 million. Okay, so as you remember from this graph that we had, sites basically B and C are too far. So between A and D, let's take a look and see which one is good. So this A is 21 million and D is 24 million. So that would be one way to approach it. We can say that, okay, site A is closer in terms of center of gravity. Also, the cost is pretty low. So maybe we can go ahead and choose A.
Yeah. 那其实又回到刚刚第一个问题，那就是在通过重心法得知 A 和 D 离最佳选址最近以后，我们还可以通过考量成本来确定最后选择。所以最后发现 A 不但离得更近，它的总体成本也比 D 要少。不好意思，哪位同学是有问题吗？
Okay.
我先 OK， 所以就是最后得出就是 A 成本更低而且更近，所以我们选择 A。
Okay, so this is one way to approach it. But if we do this, we might have made a good decision, but we are leaving a lot of information untouched. Okay, all this qualitative information that you have here, you're leaving it untouched.
Yeah. 那这种决策方法确实不错，但如果这样决策的话，我们会发现其实有很多要素我们没有考虑在内，这些很重要的因素就在这个决策当中被忽略掉。
In order to use those qualitative information, first we need to convert them into some sort of quantitative score. Again, as someone mentioned, which I forgot his or her name. And so, for example, in terms of traffic access and congestion, good, poor, and moderate, we can give it a 1 to 5 scale, and then get a basically weighted average. So let me go ahead and do that again in order to save a little time. I copy and paste it.
Yeah. 那对于这些定性标准，我们可以把它们转化为一个定量的数据，就像刚刚的Sunny同学提到的那样，通过1到5分的打分，然后进行加权平均的计算，来确定这几个标准我们该如何衡量。那接下来我会带着大家来做一下这个加权平均的计算。
Okay, very good. So now let's go ahead and see. So this is going to be a sample. Okay, so for the qualitative part, okay, qualitative information that I have, forget about these weights for now. And let me long-term growth. Let's make this visible. Okay, forget about these weights for now. So site A, for example, you see that I gave it a 4, and site B and C give them a 0, and site D give them a 5 in terms of gaining environmental endorsement. Again, as you remember, gaining environmental endorsement, this was almost, these two are no, and this is a yes. So I gave a 5 here, a 0 here, a 0 here, and a 4 here.
那我们可以看到，我就是做出了这样的一个简单的加权平均，就是每一项都按1到5打分，然后每一个都是大概给到了，就是每一个都占20%的分数，然后根据每个打分1到5打分，再进行加权计算以后，可以得出这几个定性标准最后面的总得分。
So I will continue the same thing and basically turn all these qualitative measures into some quantitative measures, some scores, and then assign them some weight, okay? So these weights right now, it's all 20%. So I have 5, so 20% would be 100%. But this is all, again, is arbitrary, okay? It's based on your criteria. Yeah. If your traffic access is more important, you increase the weight. If long-term growth is more important, you increase the weight on that front, and so on. The most important thing is that all these should come to 100%.
那其实关于每一项的权重占多少，只是由大家自己决定。如果大家觉得交通因素在这里更重要，那我们就给交通因素更高的权重；如果觉得其他因素更重要，我们就给其他因素更高的权重。所以虽然我在这里给大家举的例子是评分的权重，但实际上在真实的计算和后面的决策中，大家可以根据自己在选址方面的考量来决定哪一项的权重更大，然后根据不同的权重来算出最后的总分。
And then I can use that sum product formula that I talked about. Okay, so there is a little problem here. It should be 28, and this should be 32. Okay, so I use the sum product formula again, and I multiply the weights by all the scores for all of these. Okay, so do the sum product again and again and again. So let me change this formula. This is not correct. So the sum product, and sum product to get a overall score for a weighted, based on a weighted average.
那所以就还是用权重的这个公式，用加权平均的公式我们来计算，然后稍微改一下加权平均它对应的单元格，然后我们就可以进行每一项的加权平均值的计算，最后得出来的一个总分。
Okay, so this is another basically piece of information. So I have 3 different these. If I want to combine the cost and weighted average, I can do another thing and get the cost and divide that by this score that I have from the qualitative values. Okay, so what I will do, I will get the cost per weighted average point. And that, for example, you can see it's going to be this cost that I have here, okay? This cost that I have here, and it's in millions, divided by the score, okay? So this is going to be the adjusted cost. And as you can see, again, the best choice is A, still A.
Yeah. 那得到了这个分数以后，我们可以进行的一个计算就是用总成本来除以分数，最后来得出一个单位分数的成本。那通过这样的计算，可以还是得出 AD 的单位分数的成本它是最低的，所以我们最后综合各项能够得出了选 A 这样的一个结论。
Okay, this concludes our work. Sorry, I was a little I mismanaged a little time a little, so it's right at 6. I usually try to let you go a few minutes before the end of class. There's a link in the chat about that second video that you can go ahead and watch. If you have any questions, stay on the call. I will be able to answer them. Otherwise, I hope you have a great rest of your weekend, and I will see you next week.
Yeah. 那由于这节课的我们晚了10分钟，所以最后一个视频大家可以拿回去自己看。那在群里大家有问题也可以问我，我很乐意给大家解答。希望大家周末快乐。And Professor, I have a question about the case study. So at first we thought we just need to discuss it and didn't need to submit. But now we understand that we need to submit. After all, we have understand how to do it. So what is the deadline for this case study?
The deadline was technically today before the class, but since it was the first session and there was some confusion, everybody can submit it until next week, by next week.
By next week.
Okay.
So maybe students, maybe they submit their case to me first, and after I translate it, I will package it and submit to you. Maybe
you don't need to do that. You don't need to do that.
Oh, I don't need.
One important thing is that case studies only need to be submitted to you, okay? And they only get a pass or fail for submitting their work. It's not
okay. So if they submit, and then we can decide whether they pass or not. So then I don't.
As long as they submit, it's a pass.
Okay, I understand. As long as they submit, we will consider them to be passed. But they don't need to submit it for you for grading again, right?
No, it's not going to be graded based on the correct answer.
Yes, okay, I understand. Okay, I will explain this to them. 所以同学们，关于这个 case 最后得出的结论就是，大家虽然就是讨论是会算在分数，大家的平时的参与分，然后因为大家其实今天教授给大家讲解的已经蛮详细，所以接下来做下来应该是很轻松，所以最后大家把自己的答案总结成一个版本发给到我，然后只要大家交的话，这部分的分就算得到了。所以说我们不会对这个 case 进行具体的打分，只要大家交就是设为过 pass。然后大家需要在 M 云上提交进行打分的，就是我们今天已经讲解的这几个问题。那通过讲解，相信大家也能很快解决。那第一堂课就到此结束。那如果大家没有问题，可以先退出会议室，然后半个小时后会进行第2个班的讲解。
But discussion of the case in the WeChat group and in the live session is part of the participation as very important.
Yeah, I have confirmed it with them. 就是再确认一下，所以就是说，大家在群里的参与度确实是要和那个算进大家的平时分。Yes, about Sunny's question, I think I can answer. 就是第一周的作业大家是在平台上传，这个是没错的。然后案例分析大家不用在平台上传，回头我会在群里通知大家发给我或者发给 Stella 老师，就是把你们的问题总结一下，只要你们交了就确定这一份是过掉了就可以了。所以大家需要评分的是这一个那10道题目。
The only part of the assignment that will be graded based on the correct answers are the multiple choice that you have the answers.
Yeah, we have the answer.
We'll be able to take care of it.
Yeah. 所以就是那10道题目大家是需要被打分，但是这个 case 是不要打分的。So here another, we are not sure we can open the YouTube link in China.
Oh, I see.
So maybe can you download it to me and we will share with them? Yeah.
Yes, I can download it and send it to you. It might take a few minutes, but I will send it.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. 那这个视频如果大家担心打不开，教授可以下来分享给我，然后我再传给大家，这个没关系，大家还是可以看。
Okay, I will email it to Sherry and she can.
Yeah. 那谢谢第1班的所有同学，我们下周再见。
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your weekend. Okay, so do you want me to stop the call, Sherry?
Yeah, maybe we can stop it now.
Have a good one.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye. We will see you in half an hour.
Half an hour, yes.
Yeah.